Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Module 5 Media and Cyber or Digital Literacy. Module 5 consists of 7 lessons. In Lesson 1, Media Literacy. Lesson 2, What Media Literacy is Not. In Lesson 3, Challenges to Media Literacy Education. In Lesson 4, Digital Literacy. In Lesson 5, Socio-Emotional Literacy within Digital Literacy. In Lesson 6, Digital Natives. In Lesson 7, Challenges to Digital Literacy Education. Enhance, Reflect, and Evaluate. Learning outcomes. The student should be able to first, develop working understanding of media and cyber or digital literacy and how they relate to one another. 2. Appreciate the importance of developing media and cyber or digital literacy both in ourselves and one another in the information age. And 3. Realize that practical steps must be taken to develop these literacies early in children and cannot wait until they are older. Let's explore. Of all the 21st century literacies presented in this book, none of them embodies the newness of these literacies quite like those needed to make sense of the absolute deluge of information brought to us by the internet. With a vast number of websites, web forums, and social media applications now available for us, never before has there been so much information in nearly every from imaginable. From nearly every source imaginable available to us 24-hour a day, no matter our location, where once we had librarians, information custodians, as you will to curate the information we regularly ingest. Now, there is nothing standing between the individual and the wellspring of the information represented by the internet. In any time and in anywhere through the internet, it makes easier for us to get access and get information we needed through the use of different social medias and websites we use. However, as we will soon discover, it is the so called old literacies that will serve us faithfully in the new context we find ourselves today as they have done in the past. To begin our investigation, we must first understand the relationship between media literacy and cyber or digital literacy. By the way, I am Rosalinda Berico and I will be discussing in the lesson 1 media literacy. Like all the literacies discussed in this book, media literacy can be defined in several ways. Arthur Head in 1993 defines it as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and communicate messages in a wide variety of forms, while Chris and Potter in 1998 defines it as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create messages across a variety of contexts. Hobbes in 1998 posits that it is a term used by modern scholars to refer to the process of critically analyzing and learning to create one's own messages in print, audio, video, and multimedia. Perhaps in its simplest sense, media literacy can thus be defined as the ability to identify and understand the messages they are communicating. The exact type of media varies on the television, radio, newspapers, magazines, books, handouts, flyers, and etc. But what they all have in common is that they they were all created by someone, and that someone had a reason for creating them. Media is a means or a methods of communication that influence people. For example of media are TV, newspaper, radio, movies, magazine, flyers, and etc. Literacy means knowing how to read or analyze an information. So, media literacy means knowing how to analyze media. Despite the relatively simple and clear definition of media literacy, it should come as not surprise that scholars and educators have been debating for quite some time on how media literacy should both define and taught. Otherhead in 1993 and Hobbs in 1998 reported at the 1993 Media Literacy National Leadership Conference in US, educators could not agree on the range of appropriate goals, appropriate instructional techniques. There are five essential concepts necessary for any analysis of media messages. First, media messages are constructed. Second, media messages are produced within economic, social, political, historical, and aesthetic contexts. Third, the interpretative meaning making process involved in the message reception consists of an interaction between the reader, the text, and the culture. Fourth, media has unique languages characteristics which typify various forms, genres, and symbol systems of communication. And fifth, media representations play a role in people understandings of social reality. What these five concepts boil down is that while the producer of a particular media has an intended meaning behind the communication, what actually gets communicated to the consumers depends not only on the media itself, but also on the consumers themselves, on their respective culture. The consumer's perceived meanings is what then develops into how people understands social reality. An immediate example of this is the media portrayal of Mindanao, because so little good news coming from the island is communicated by the news networks, the average Filipino who might never have been to Mindanao comes to believe that the entire is involved armed conflict, that anyone from Mindanao is somehow involved in the conflict and therefore understandably refuses to go there nor allow any of his or her relatives to do so. It is unlikely that this was the news media's intention, but it is the viewer's interpretation that ultimately determined his or her beliefs and behavior. In Lesson 2, what media literacy is not. First, criticizing the media is not, in and of itself, media literacy. However, being media literate sometimes requires that one indeed criticize what one sees and hears. Second, merely producing media is not media literacy, although part of being media literate is the ability to produce media. Teaching with media, videos, presentations, and etc. does not equal media literacy. And education in media literacy must also include teaching about media. Viewing media and analyzing it from a single perspective is not media literacy. True media literacy requires both the ability and willingness to view and analyze media from multiple positions and perspectives. Media literacy does not simply mean knowing what and what not to watch. It does mean that watch carefully and think critically. So, lantawon mo anay sang maayo, kag magpanumduman mo sang madalom. So guys, thanks for listening!